Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food. I'm your host, Cliff Sargent. Great to see you as always. Hope you're doing well. Let's talk about a film. This will contain spoilers. Get that espresso. So this film is excellent. I don't know, I just always, you know me, I just seem to just hone in on the bleakest, most depressing art house films there are, but I don't know, what can I say? They're the best. La Notte is a 1961 film by the Italian director Michelangelo Antonioni. Antonioni is one of my favorite directors. I love Antonioni. Blow Up, L'Avventura, The Passenger. These are some of the greatest films in history. They're the best. It doesn't get better, you know? There's a great interview that informed this review on the Criterion channel with the film critic Adriano Apra and screenwriter Carlo Di Carlo. My Italian pronunciation is atrocious. Excuse me. Italy is the next place I want to visit. I just have to see it. It just looks amazing. I saw La Notte amazingly for the first time the other day. This is the second film in what is referred to as Antonioni's Alienation trilogy, beginning with L'Avventura and ending with L'Eclisse. The cast in this is just excellent. Marcello Mastroianni in his prime, handsome, immaculately dressed, the epitome of Italian style, Italian fashion. Jean Moreau, who plays his wife, dramatic, sullen, and of course the stunning Monica Vitti. Mark Kermode, one of my favorite film critics, called it jazzy, angsty, and timelessly stylish. Sums it up. The cinematography is outstanding. Large, wide shots, reflections, frames within frames. It's just a gorgeous looking film. The subject is the death of a marriage during the post-war economic boom in Milan. Maybe less of the actual death of that relationship, and more of an excruciating, slow execution of a marriage. It's like a relationship succumbing to the death of 1,000 cuts. It also seems, on a larger scale, like the death of one culture and the birth of a new one, with this odd transition period, and with new problems. Milan, where the film is set, is in the middle of an economic boom. All the architecture in the film is super modern, for the time of course. And while this is stunning visually, it's portrayed in a manner that is oppressive, lonely. Marcello plays a well-known Italian writer named Giovanni, and Jean Moreau plays his wife Lydia. I actually learned after watching this that Umberto Eco makes a cameo in the film. Normally, I associate Marcello with happier roles, you know, like 8.5 by Fellini. Neurotic, but kind of jubilant and excitable, you know? So in this film, both of the actors, Mastroianni and Moreau, who are at the top of their careers, are stripped of everything, and instead of acting, are seen as just sort of existing. Maybe unsurprisingly, neither of them like the finished film. Antonioni employs something called cinematic dead time, which I learned from this review, which you can find in the description box below. Cinematic dead time, which is a beautiful, meditative method of just letting the camera sit during something in the film and not move while the characters are moving about. There may be a little camera movement, but you're allowed to witness their lives. Life as it is for them in the film. And by doing this, Antonioni allows you to pick up the little details you would otherwise miss when the film just cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts. Orson Welles didn't care for this technique, I don't think. So yes, La Notte is a film about alienation, and two unfaithful people trying to make a marriage work even when they've fallen out of love. Right from the beginning we can sense there's something wrong with the marriage. Their body language, for one, is distant. Much of the film is distant in general. It's as if something terrible has happened and we don't know what, as if someone has died. And indeed, the first scene involves them visiting their dying friend at a hospital. It's such a sad thing to experience, wanting to say something meaningful to your friend who's dying, but unsure how to express everything you want to given the circumstances. But something did die before we met the couple. Their love. Their marriage died a long time ago. We don't know why, we don't really know what the deal was. Maybe it was his fault, maybe it was her fault, maybe it was both of their faults. Doesn't matter. We come in and this thing is already dead, like dead on arrival. So it's really just a ghost of a relationship that you're following around this city, which is enormous and barren and lonely. This mutual friend of theirs, Tommaso, seems to have a special relationship or connection to Lydia. I began to think some sort of affair happened, and I'm not really sure if anything did. Though by the end, during a scene of confession, it appears to have been more of an emotional affair. The shots are wide, huge, expansive, and make the characters feel so small, so lost in this cavernous black and white landscape, feeling it out, trying to find their way. There's one scene, after visiting their friend in the hospital, where Lydia is just wandering around the city, searching. For what? Maybe something from the past. Maybe their love, maybe herself, maybe somebody else, maybe for signs of something good to come. She's grieving for her friend and her relationship, and maybe for the changing times, maybe for the dead past, the love that's gone by, you know? I don't know if I've ever seen a film that so clearly depicts two people absolutely and totally lost in the middle of their lives, unhappy when, In their good fortune, they have every right to be ecstatic. But it doesn't seem to be a failure on their part. It just seems like this is part of life. Sometimes we get stuck, and it's not necessarily anybody's fault. Or maybe it's both of your faults, but it kind of cancels itself out, and you're sort of left picking up the pieces from something that just wasn't going to work, you know? It's rough. Even when they go out, they're not having fun. It's hedonic adaptation at its best. They're completely bored. Nothing about wealth or extravagant lifestyle seems to appeal. And by the way, they must be truly bored, because they go to this nightclub, and this dancer is able to balance a glass of wine without spilling a drop in ways I didn't even think humanly possible. But alas, the married couple are just drinking and thinking and sinking. Everything is without taste, old, dry. Their marriage is a cracked and barren desert. Speaking of cracked and barren, when Lydia is wandering, she looks at this broken clock on the ground and then feels some crumbling plaster or something on a wall which falls apart in her hands. The Italian author Alberto Moravia, whom I've reviewed, said that this is the high point of the film. You know, it's like this crumbling of the facade, the collapse of the exterior, revealing the decaying interior. I wear black on the outside. No, all right. I'll spare you the Morrissey. There's another terrific film, come to think of it, with Jean Moreau wandering around a city at night, which would be Elevator to the Gallows, the first feature directed by Louis Malle, with an amazing improvised soundtrack by Miles Davis. Terrific film, beautiful film, but that's for another day. So Lydia can't stand the sight of her dying friend and leaves the room, but Giovanni stays. And as he's going out, there's this mentally unstable woman in another room next door who tries to seduce him, and he goes along with it. Like, he enters her room, which, because she's clearly mentally insane, you know, sick, says something about his character. And then the nurses break in and start slapping her. That was pretty strange. When he goes outside, he finds Lydia, who is crying, but he doesn't embrace her. He just looks at her with this pained, guilty expression of unknowing how to act. That kind of says it all. If you're not comforting each other after a moment like watching your friend die, well, that's a sign, no? The film culminates in a party at this enormous villa, owned by an industrialist who wants to hire Giovanni. We discover the author is insecure about his financial situation, as he considers taking a job with this man who wants to use him for his company, but will pay him well to do it, implying, in kind of a gouge, that Giovanni is getting by only because his wife comes from a wealthy family. The party appears to be filled with other wealthy bored people, getting outrageously fucked up, as you do when you're bored and wealthy. But our characters are hollowed out, and even when they both have encounters with other people, nothing seems passionate. Nothing seems real or genuine. Even the industrialist's precocious daughter, Valentina, played by Monica Vitti, who Giovanni falls for, already seems disenchanted with romance. There are two amazing shots depicting these feelings. These are my favorite scenes. It's a tie. It's when Giovanni and Lydia are both being unfaithful to one another at the party. The first is when Lydia gets a ride with a guy from the party when it starts pouring rain, and you can see them riding in the car, laughing and talking together, but it's from outside, so all you hear is the pouring rain. You don't hear any of the joy or life, just the rain. I don't think I've ever seen that in a film before. The second is when Giovanni meets Valentina, the industrialist's daughter. And as he stares at her for the first time, all we see is his reflection in this window, in the frame. A shell of a man, a ghost, right? And then he moves towards her and the camera moves and he actually comes into frame physically. It's a visual trick, but it's so good. Later at the party, Lydia discovers that Tommaso, their friend from the hospital, has died. In the end, they're left wandering in the early morning across the property. Looks like a golf course or something. Apparently, according to Carlo Di Carlo, Antonioni never really thought about endings. That was his great secret. Nothing is resolved, like many of the great novels. In the end, she reads him this beautiful love letter written to her. And he asks, "Who wrote that?" And she replies, "You did." He doesn't even remember. When we fall in love with someone, it's sometimes such a sudden reversal of a life void of meaning, a monochrome, dreary, routine existence that suddenly has been given a completely renewed sense of hope, of desire. Could we possibly blame either of them for wanting to, against all odds, keep it alive? Still, the way he acts in the end of the film is nonetheless disturbing. I love what Apra said about the film in this interview on the Criterion channel. It's the opposite of a moralistic film. It doesn't wear its morality on its sleeve. Its moral is contained via the form of the film. It's contained within the film's form. And this moral is not some kind of truth. It's a hypothesis. Like Lydia wandering around the city, Antonioni is also searching. He doesn't pretend to have the answers. And that's very mature. Yeah, I don't know. That's very... I really appreciate filmmakers like that, where the endings are one big question mark, you know, because that's what life is like. It's often ambiguous and things are not wrapped up. Or if they are, it's only temporarily and then they're unraveled again, or new questions are brought to light. Nothing is ever static. Nothing is ever finished. You know? It's dynamic. I loved it. Better than food. Basically, everyone is depressed in this film. It's not for everyone. And I'd recommend it only to those who are in a good place. So who should watch it? If you enjoy Bresson, Godard, especially Alphaville, Tarkovsky, Louis Buñuel, Bergman, and Wong Kar-wai, I think this is for you. I think you'll find something here that you'll love. And of course, if you've seen other parts of the trilogy, which I had, I saw La Ventura. I saw that a long time ago and I loved it. So who's going to get it for the coffee lottery? For those of you who are new, the coffee lottery is where I take all the names of the patrons on Patreon who have donated $5 or more per video. I place their names in this mason jar. I pull out a name for every review I do, and I send that person a bag of coffee plus a 1-month subscription to the Streaming Criterion channel or a book of their choice plus a bag of coffee roasted by yours truly. And if you'd like to get in on that, you can head over to patreon.com/booksarbetterthanfood and donate $5 or more per video. $1 or more will get you access to the patron-only reviews. Thank you to all the patrons who have supported the show, and thank you to the new patrons who have come by this month. Really appreciate it. Best of luck to all of you. All right, here we go. Bojan. Thanks for all the support, Bojan. Really appreciate it. Please subscribe for more film and book reviews. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this, and you can also follow me on Instagram and DM me there and let me know which films or books you thought were better than food. I always like to hear what people are reading and watching, so thank you very much. Take care of yourselves. Have a good night. I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.